No country has ever prospered that failed to put its own interests first. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism.
New Right Network presents Right Now, the featured podcast of New Right Network. Mobilizing, countering the left, energizing the right. New Right Network, home of the New Right movement.
Hello and welcome to New Right Network's Right Now podcast. I'm your host, Brittany, and with me today is Tina Griffin. Tina has traveled globally for the past 15 years to reveal how pop culture and media is glamorizing harmful behaviors without showing the consequences, and how these messages are eroding the foundation development of today's youth. Follow her on Twitter at Tina M. Griffin. Welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes. Hey, Brittany, thank you so much for having me. I've been doing this for actually 17 years, believe it or not, talking about pop culture, media influence, just because when I was a teen, I hated being lied to. I wanted to know the truth. I didn't want people to tell me what to think or believe either. So I understand if some teens might be a little shocked at the content that I deliver. But I was a farm kid in Wisconsin, grew up out there till I was about 18 years old, went to 2 years of college over at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and then had an interest in film, TV, broadcasting, that type of deal, and then moved to Cal State Los Angeles to finish up my 2 more years of college years of education, and got a film and television broadcasting degree from Cal State Los Angeles, minoring in radio, but I did a lot of journalism, radio, all of it. And then I worked on set for a total of 10 years, some of it overlapping while I was in college. So I had a really good inside glimpse at pop culture, at celebrity true lifestyles behind the scenes. It's not what we see on the front of magazine covers, glamorized. A lot of these celebs are awesome parents. They're awesome parents. They shelter their own kids from a lot of their own entertainment, which had me go, wait a second. And as I was helping out teens in Los Angeles for about an 8-year period at a local church, and hearing a lot of these teens telling me about the issues they were dealing with in school, personal life that did not match up with pop culture, but they lived this lifestyle thinking it was in hip, cool, trend, I saw a major disconnect. And that's when I started speaking about these issues that I've been doing now for almost 2 decades.
That's awesome. It's so great that you're exposing what's going on. And Hollywood really does lie to us, right? They tell us one thing and then they preach another, where they, like you said, they try to make glamorize these harmful things, like, sex before marriage, or, you have the 50 Shades movies. How is that healthy? How is that good for you? It's not. So tell us a little bit about what's happened recently. So you were going to go to a school and speak, and then what happened?
Well, I will, I'll give you the lowdown on that. There's some days I wish I was a positive comedian, that I smashed bricks with my arm, that I could, jump 20 feet in the air and do 5 backflips, which will get a great crowd response and some hooping and hollering and achieve the best type rah-rah messages. So there are some days like this last week where I'm riding this roller coaster thinking, why am I doing this again? And can I just stay home with my kids and homeschool my kids and just stay under the radar? And then, of course, God inside of me says, are you kidding? I gave you way too much content to not share. And I'm realizing, Brittany, I just want to preface what happened last week. I want to say to everybody tuning in, sometimes we're going to say a message that no one will want to listen to or apply. But our job is to go out there and speak truth, because then someday when they face God, they can't say, no one told me, I never knew. And that is what God is telling me. In this last day and age before Christ comes back, which I believe it's why Satan's attacking your kids at an all-time high. And we can talk about exactly what's going on. Just Netflix alone, I literally feel sick when I see the programs coming out of Netflix. But I can see the dots and how they connect, and why Satan knows he has little time left to do the most damage. How can I wipe out the masses to follow me and go astray and not follow the truth of the Bible? So with that said, I still love what I do. There were many kids that came up to me afterwards from these couple different school assemblies I did have a chance to do, that lives are changed, spared, and I had a couple of them still texting me today. And I actually had a Christian school, when I spoke there in Central Michigan, I hired 15 students to jump on board with me, Brittany. and work with CCM as a whole new division called Counterculture Teens, where they're going to be doing and blasting out pop culture alerts that I assign to them, and they will be able to use their talents to glorify God, help wake up their own generation coming from their voice. It's a win-win. I was so excited. If I had to go through the hell that I've gone through and still going through now to be able to meet those students at that one Christian school, it was all worth it. But what I was asked to do is I was asked about 6 months ago to come do a Central Michigan tour and speak at 3 public schools, 1 Christian school, and do a parent event. I said, not a problem, I can totally come. The schools were given information ahead of time as far as what I was told, and they knew what I was talking on. They had my website, they knew my topics. But, and I've spoken hundreds, if not thousands, of public schools over the last 2 decades. Have I had ever issues? Yeah, there's a couple times where it hit news a little bit. People are like, hey, but nothing like I've seen recently this bad. Primarily started by adults, some of which didn't hear me speak, that started to cyberbully me on my website, which then it went to a local paper, and the local paper, half of it was inaccurate, coming from an editor who just tweeted yesterday. It's so important to be journalists that are giving out factual information. And I responded saying, you just blasted me in the media 4 days ago. Maybe reread the article that you're pumping out here. It was the Morning Sun up in Michigan. So I went in, did 2 school assemblies. Before I got to one of the schools, some students went on my social media, saw that I was pro-life, saw that I was a Christian, saw that I had my concern over LGBT schooling, mandatory schooling in schools across the country today, which nothing of scripture is ever mentioned. And my thoughts, which I'm still pumping out today, a very hot topic, is goes much deeper than a school assembly, on the fact that Christian parents paying tax-paying dollars towards our public education to send their kids to an anti-God message school all day should be able to let their kids hear a positive message that's not one-sided for 45 minutes when the rest of these kids are getting the rest of the school year, 40 hours a week times 40 weeks a school year, a very anti-God liberal message. When both sides, both type of parents are paying tax dollars to that school. But even though I know my rights because of separation of church and state, which one principal blasted in my face before going on, doing one of these assemblies, 5 minutes before, she said, separation of church and state, you can't talk about God. I said, not even in my testimony, like God sent me out there. Nope, I can't, sorry. And I didn't want to argue with her, even though I knew my rights, Brittany, but that school went over very well. I took out the 3 slides that didn't mention God, but I didn't want someone to say, oh, there was a scene in there where someone was holding hands. Well, they could have said prayer. So I took out any questionable slides, which I've never done before in my life. I dumbed this presentation down. That presentation, I got at least 40 or 50 students that asked me tons of questions for at least a half an hour, if not an hour after I got done, flooded with response. The next school I went to, some students had seen my social media page, freaked out I was conservative, and because of a couple of loudmouths there that don't understand the reality of separation of church and state, that don't understand that I didn't do anything illegal, that just don't agree with my point of view, they literally caused a last school assembly on Friday this last week to cancel me about 2 hours before I'm about to go on. So they silenced the ears of a couple hundred students, I think like 600-700 students, to hear a message I know would have caused them to think differently about entertainment, to cause them to have a higher self-esteem and not believe what magazines pump out, to know safety features about chat features that are now on online video games, to realize that beheading women in video games is not a wise choice and why. Any atheist student or parent would have hugged me around the neck and said, thank you for bending over backwards, leaving your 4 kids 10 and under from your house for a half a week to come try to save my kid. Anybody with any kind of faith-based or no faith-based, it doesn't matter, because I wasn't talking about my personal beliefs. I was bringing bullying message to these students that desperately needed to hear it. And I found out later, girl, that 2 fights broke out at that school before I came. One fight was so bad, a kid needed to be escorted by an ambulance.
Oh, word.
Yep. And it's one of the biggest drug-infested schools of that central Michigan area, which is why they said, sure, let's bring her in. This is a bigger problem of the freedom of thought being stripped by students in America. I was discriminated against because of my Facebook wall. There are atheist teachers teaching Christian kids in schools today. Why does it matter who's delivering the message? If the message is going to help our students out, it was very positive. It was very uplifting. It blasted open the doors of pop culture and the lies that it promotes on a daily basis to our kids. Counterculturemom.com is the website. Parents can go to it, see my heart for these kids. I'm willing to take a bullet to save a life. I've told kids that. I did it the whole last week in Michigan. I'm willing to take a bullet to save a life. But kids are being ingesting very dangerous, harmful content in their minds. And that's why we're seeing a rise of escalating violence. Suicide's the number 2 killer among our kids in America today. We're seeing social media that's driving kids to take their lives and binge drink. Premarital sex, which leads to STDs and abortion. Why? Because they're getting this message from pop culture. Their parents aren't telling them to ingest this. Their teachers certainly aren't telling them to ingest this content. They're having problems because our kids are struggling with these issues. It's coming primarily from Hollywood. They missed out major. And I talked to that principal today and I told him, hey, you gave the example to hundreds of kids in your school. Yes, you want a safe environment, but you just gave me an example that if a couple kids disagree with my message, that if you're a loudmouth on social media and call a school, 3 voices can silence a person that could help a couple hundred kids. You gave the wrong message to your students. And because of the backlash, girl, I have schools that want me up there back in that same area. They want me to come share the message in their schools with open arms. And of course, I might have to go with a bulletproof vehicle at this point because these tour dates will probably be on my calendar. But it's wild times we're living in, but we can't stop doing what we're doing for the sake of these kids.
It's crazy that people, that a few students, I mean, that shows kind of how weak the principal is and that school system is, because the principal and the administrators, they're supposed to be the ones that are in charge. The students, go to them. And so for them to, just a few students to be able to cause such a ruckus and get you canceled, that's absolutely ridiculous. And it's those students that need it the most as well, need your message. I liked what you said about your whole point about Hollywood and Netflix and what these things are putting out. This summer, my roommate started watching The Bachelorette. I'd never seen it before because I think that and The Bachelor are just trashy shows. But Hannah Brown, who you've probably heard all about, she claimed to be a Christian. So yes. I was like, well, roommate bonding. I just met these girls. Let's see what this is about. Let's see if Hannah B can live up to what she's claiming.
Absolutely.
I was horrified. I was disappointed. I wanted to scream because she kept, she was doing these awful things and, the sex after sex after sex and saying, Jesus still loves me. And I think that's just such an example of what you're preaching against. Is Hollywood will tell you that, and they'll even twist the name of Jesus. Half Hollywood doesn't believe he exists. Half of them will hate him, and then half of them will twist his name and twist his truth. And that's not how it works. Tell us a little bit about that, about how they will just throw Jesus into the mix in whatever way suits them.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And we could talk for 2 hours because so many thoughts in my mind. That's why I hardly sleep at night, because I have all these ideas or thoughts there's so many problems to the mix, but there is hope and answers. It's not an easy one way to answer why this is going on, but I watched that season. I watch a lot of those seasons. Why? Because teens constantly come up to me and ask me questions. What do you think about this or that episode? Luke was a prime example. He got bullied so bad, cyberbullied in that show, man, and bullied by the other guys on that show. Is he different? Does he have different views? Did he handle everything properly? No, he didn't. But he was the one that was nitpicked and scrutinized and underneath the microscope the entire episode, the entire season. Hannah, saying she's Christian, I would question her faith. Oh, you're judging. I'm not judging. I'm just making a point. I would question her faith. And she might be in a church or grew up in an environment that really, according to what her mom was blasting out on Instagram, I don't know if she's a believer. And the reason I say this is because if you believe in Jesus and knowing that he died on the cross, you're having him die on the cross in vain if you can smear his blood over the fact that it's okay to have premarital sex with different guys on national TV. And even if it's not on national TV, setting that example for millions of young people watching that show blew me out of the water. Luke had every right to ask Hannah B on that last sit-down date if she had sex with anybody else, because he too would be the other half of that marriage. And for her to be judgmental and laugh in his face and yell at him on national TV because he should have never asked that right and why smear that, it's because she felt convicted.
Absolutely.
That's why that went down. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But let's call sin for what it is. It's sin. I was so disappointed like you because I was praying and hoping. She said she's a Christian. She did a pretty good job on the previous Bachelor. So let's finally have a voice for the Christian generation here on what it looks like to have a standard. Had I been single and been on this show, like I've done a lot of reality dating shows when I lived in LA, I was the virgin. I was the one laughed at. I was the one that was drinking soda at the beer parties. But I want to make sure my scenes could show kids you can have fun and a great time and not leave the party with an STD or pregnant. It's possible. I would wear abstinence t-shirts on sets. I'd have directors saying, abstinence, wait, come here, blondie. No drugs, no drugs, no party. I said, yeah, no sex. What? Are you a virgin? Yes. Where'd you grow up in? Wisconsin. And I said, I'm not the only virgin in Hollywood. There's a bunch of us. So Hollywood pushes its agenda. And like I told kids for the last two decades of speaking, that if young people chose to not have sex and sex wasn't advertised in commercials and movies and TV shows and video games and everything else, and the group sex and the orgies and Sabrina, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, or the beheadings in our video games today, like Grand Theft Auto and drive-by shootings, and these kids are now landing up in prison for doing those behaviors. If the violence and sex-saturated and drug use wasn't promoted, Planned Parenthood would be out millions of dollars because there'd be less kids that are pregnant. STD and drugs that are needed now for our kids would be at an all-time low. The drug companies wouldn't be making bank because kids wouldn't need to be pumped with a bunch of drugs going to school every day to focus because they're dealing with all the issues that Hollywood's trying to sell them. It would be a cleaner, happier, less suicidal, more joy-filled, relaxing world that we'd be living in here in America. And like I said to these kids last week, the violent movies, one slide I had up with just the movies released in 2019, weren't even allowed to be played or showed in other parts of the world, which goes to show me that these other countries, when I read the reviews on this, they don't want their kids exposed to it because the rise of violence, the rise of suicide, the rise of crimes, kids behind bars, kids dead, murder rate goes up. So it does correlate. But if kids are going to have backlash, which a couple of them did from one of the assemblies, it's because they feel convicted. It's because they want to be the hip new thing in the town that week. But the sad thing is they're ingesting content that they know deep inside they shouldn't be ingesting, and their parents are ingesting the same content. So, and I don't tell them what to do in my thing. I'm not like, you shouldn't watch these shows. I don't come across that way. You're not going to win anybody that way.
Right.
I say, here's Hollywood, what they're promoting. Here are the shows they're not letting their own kids actually watch because they want their kids to go to private school and live in a mansion and get a great job someday and not be behind bars. I want that, if not more, for you. You deserve better than the trash they're feeding you. It's time to rise above the mess and create positive pop culture. Gravitate towards the thousands of positive entertainment that's out there that's not cheesy. I had cheesy junk, when I was a kid. So to give your listeners, if I could, Brittany,
Absolutely,
a quick little glimpse. I created, because I'm social media, I'm constantly censored on social media, and only the bad news makes it out there. I have a brand new Counterculture Mom app that I designed about a year ago with my husband. Download the Counterculture Mom app. I have blogs written about today's pop culture, what you can watch out for. I have 7 other moms on here with amazing counterculture warrior content. Of course, it's not loading here, some of the stuff, there's so much content. But my favorite part in here, if you can see that, does that come through okay?
yes.
Okay, is the alert section. And on the alert section, you will see the recent videos that just came out that kids are watching, what content's in it. It's a 3-minute read for people. The positive TV shows and movies that are out there so you know what to watch with your kids this weekend and support the positive books, the stuff you got to run from, like the YouTube suicide commercials that are in for kids YouTube. So it's a great way for parents to stay up to date. Power is back in their hands instead of Hollywood's hands on raising our kids. And I speak all over the place. So if you want me coming in to talk about these issues, counterculturemom.com, click on booking inquiry. Because of this bomb in the media, I was asked to go back up to Central Michigan and nail some more schools with the truth, because they know if I'm being censored and attacked, I must be sharing something that's actually challenging the crowd to think differently on. So yeah, it's so critical today that we get the truth out there.
Absolutely. You're doing an incredible job, and I'm so proud to even know you. Make sure to go, if you're listening, go download her app, go follow Tina on social media. Tell us again where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. Counterculturemom.com is the website. The Counterculture Mom app you want to download and say yes to getting notifications. You also want to get my free parent media guide, which is loaded with thousands of positive entertainment options. To get that, you text the word guide, GUIDE, to the number 444-999 and hit send. It'll bounce back asking for your email. That will come in your inbox within seconds. It also has helpful tips in there, resources, and I have a brand new 4 CD series on my store at counterculturemom.com. Download that series. It's like $30 and you'll get 4 hours of content to go through with your kids on the truth behind Hollywood that I've seen firsthand. I even have clips, Brittany, of celebrities on there admitting they shelter their kids. Kids' eyes open up when I play this stuff when I do my live shows. It's an eye-opener.
That's incredible. And you can find us at www.newrightnetwork.com and follow on Twitter and all other social media at New Right Network. Thank you so much, Tina. You're doing a wonderful job. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Go get them, parents.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.